Everybody, welcome to another episode of Learn with Flo. I am Lauren Moore, a functional nutrition practitioner. I'm super excited to join you guys today as we continue on our May series, really talking about thyroid health essentials. The thyroid is one of those areas, especially of the female body, where we tend to suspect and kind of see a lot of hormone issues arise from. Okay, so if you're unfamiliar with the thyroid, definitely check out last week's episode. We talked all about thyroid health 101. What does the thyroid do? What functions in the body is it actually responsible for? What are some of the most common signs and symptoms of hypothyroid or some thyroid dysfunction going on? What is the testing that we should be actually looking for and asking for? These are the types of things we covered all in episode 1. So if you missed that one, feel free to jump back to that series because today I really want to build on that knowledge and conversation of some of the thyroid essentials and talk about really the 3 underlying biggest hidden sabotagers of thyroid health that I see in our world today. And these are things that are definitely outside of maybe our more traditional medicine thyroid care conversation. And that is because I feel like more of our traditional understanding and care of the thyroid is very incomplete medicine, right? We're getting pretty incomplete panels, and that's because we can run incomplete panels when we have kind of an incomplete care plan, right? So from a more traditional medicine experience, remember how we talked about this long ago in a lot of our different conversations of how traditional medicine is responsible for taking someone from dying to surviving, right? And so in that toolbox, traditional medicine is going to be very well equipped at handling things like medications, prescriptions, scans, life-saving type of treatment, right? And so they don't need to do a complete profile if their only tool in their toolbox is either medication or no medication, right? So from a traditional standpoint, I call it incomplete medicine, but that's not to be derogatory against it or to put it down. This is an integrative approach. So it's more incomplete because it's like kind of a cute little starter lily pad, right, for us to jump on. So when we think about thyroid health, it's like, and traditional medicine comes in and talks about thyroid care, the only tool in their toolbox is really running just enough tests to determine whether you need medication or no medication, right? That is where traditional medicine grows and thrives. Where my work then picks up at the lowdown methods, I like to think about, okay, taking someone from surviving to thriving. So when I look at the thyroid, I'm thinking a lot more holistically. I'm thinking a lot more big picture, right? So we're going to run more testing than just TSH and free T4, because that's really just going to tell us, like, do I need to give you more T4 medication or do I not need to give you more T4 medication? Whereas my thought process is, okay, even with or without medication or having thyroid symptoms, why? What is the thyroid responsible for? What does the thyroid do? And also, why is the thyroid such a big messenger from other parts of the body? So again, if you were with us last week, we really talked about how the thyroid is not the villain in this situation. It's honestly kind of the victim, okay? Because the thyroid is just receiving messages and inputs from all other parts of the body in terms of safety. So the brain, the internal organs like the gut, the liver, everywhere in the body is really communicating to the thyroid safety. And if it's not feeling safe, then it's going to act as that ultimate metabolic thermostat in the body, and it's going to down regulate, right? So it can kind of turn things cold or slow things down, right? So in a hypothyroid situation, that's why we see individuals who feel like cold all the time, brittle hair and nails, they're holding on to body composition, they're holding on in terms of a constipation pattern, right? So it's like the thyroid is being told, hey, we need to conserve energy at all costs. You got to slow things down. So the thyroid slows down like it's supposed to because of the inputs that it's getting from other parts of the body. But then we go in and from a traditional medicine standpoint, we just decide to pump it with more thyroid hormone. It's like we're just kicking it while it's down. What are we doing? We're not asking the bigger question of why. Like the thyroid is probably down regulating for a very good reason. And if we just try to like kick it with some more thyroid hormone, like here, get up, it's like kicking a sick dog when it's down. It's like, come on, get up and walk. And it's like, no, it's probably down regulating and resting for a reason. And that's where I really want to pick up today and start to talk about from now more of a functional medicine lens, where do we want to think about moving you from surviving to thriving by not just deciding like, oh, medication or no medication? I'm really going to be looking at what are those inputs? Why and where is the thyroid getting messages to slow down? Because ultimately that's going to be the rescue mission. It's not like pumping it full of more thyroid hormone to try to kick it when it's down. The whole point is to try to take off some of the overstimulating stress messages that the thyroid just keeps getting over and over again. So if we want the thyroid to like revive itself and recover itself, we have to take off those outside stress inputs, right? So thinking about that, I really want to kind of boil it down to what I think are the 3 biggest sabotagers of thyroid health. And these are a lot of times the conversations that I promise your doctor or endocrinologist is probably not talking about when it comes to thyroid health. Not because they are withholding information, but because their tool in their toolbox is literally medication or no medication, right? Or if that medication is not working, we just switch up to a different medication. Or if that medication is not working, we just add another medication. That is the tool in their toolbox. So don't get frustrated if you go to your primary care provider or you go to your endocrinologist and all they run is TSH or all they run is TSH and T4 and all they talk about are different types of thyroid medications or things that we can add on or dosing adjustments. I hear so often where women get frustrated and they're like, I tried to ask my provider to run a complete thyroid panel and all they gave me is TSH and T4. And I'm like, yes, I know, because they're only going to run what they need to determine medication or no medication. Or they get frustrated when they go in and they ask their provider for other options to manage their thyroid health naturally outside of medication, and that provider's not really able to talk to them about it or tells them honestly flat out lies like your nutrition doesn't matter or your gut health doesn't matter or your stress doesn't matter when it comes to thyroid, like you just need this medication and you're going to be on it forever. That's just a bold-faced lie, right? We've seen this time and time again that there are a lot of different inputs that are going into the thyroid health. We just need to really understand and talk physiology, right? How does the body actually work? And we need to think about things about our lifestyle, our health history, our overall emotional frequency, our biology, all of these things every single day. They are colliding to keep your thyroid stuck in a survival mode status. So what's keeping the thyroid stuck in the survival mode? What is causing the thyroid to downregulate? This is what I want us to kind of think about instead. So number 1, on the 3 biggest and hidden sabotagers of our overall thyroid health is what I call metabolic depletion. Okay, you guys maybe have heard of the term metabolic dysfunction or metabolic disease. These types of things are kind of buzzwords. We like to just use them to kind of sound smart and sound fancy. Metabolic depletion, in my definition, is really just a fancy way of saying that we are either underfueled, overstressed, undernourished, nutrient depletions, vitamin and mineral deficiencies, protein deficiency, fiber deficiency. It's like we have all of these areas of our life that are literally draining the tank. Okay. And it's up to us to then figure out for each individual, there's going to be unique triggers of metabolic depletion, but that is going to be one of the biggest slow burns on your thyroid function that we can absolutely talk about. So metabolic depletion being one of the fastest ways to really crash our thyroid also means that it's probably one of the biggest opportunities to revive our thyroid function as well too. So knowing that the thyroid is responsible for regulating metabolism, it means that AKA it is responsible for regulating overall energy, right? Energy flow in, energy flow out. In order to do that, it produces hormones, right? We talked about this last week. It produces T4, which then has to get converted into T3, into that active thyroid hormone, because T3 is like a spark plug for the cell. All of our cells have T3 receptors to really be able to get our overall metabolic rate, our energy, our digestion. Everything is vibrant and everything is flowing very happily in those situations where we're able to produce enough T4, convert it into T3, and then have T3 travel to all the cells and tell it to like, yeah, let's upregulate. Let's not turn the thermostat down. Let's dial this thermostat up and let's get her up and moving. Let's get her metabolism going so she's not sitting there and hoarding. Okay. When we have chronic metabolic depletion, like I said, whether that is under eating, over exercise, nutrient deficiencies, long-term restriction or elimination diets, especially if we're talking a deficiency in overall total carbohydrates or overall total energy coming into the situation, the body is going to get the message that energy is scarce. Okay, scarce, it's hard to come by. And in that response, of course, we're going to turn the thermostat down, right? Of course, we're going to down regulate and be like, ooh, I need to hoard and hold on at all costs. There's a lot of research behind this. There's a 2020 study that was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition that found that even short-term caloric restriction significantly reduced total T3 levels, even in healthy individuals without any known thyroid dysfunction. So we know that there is a very tight correlation between the body recognizing overall energy availability and overall thyroid function. So imagine doing some of these things for years, which is a lot of females that I tend to see that come into clinic. It's like they're skipping meals, they're exercising at high intensity without enough fuel on board, they're participating in long-term elimination diets or restrictive diets, or they have high cortisol swimming through their system from high stress, from fasting. And you create this perfect storm where the thyroid says, freak out mode, we are in danger, slow everything down right now and hoard everything at all costs. And then we start to feel those symptoms. We start to feel constipated, we start to see hair loss, we feel low body temperature, we have brain fog, we have irregular cycles, we have fertility issues, we have fatigue, even though we've slept 9 hours at night, right? Your thyroid is not broken. This is not a thyroid problem. This is an adaptive problem, right? Your thyroid is adapting to survive. So why are we blaming the thyroid and why are we medicating the thyroid? Why are we kicking it when it's obviously down-regulating for a good reason? So if you're trying to heal your thyroid while you're still out there like chronically under eating, chronically diet, you're missing the plot entirely. We have to rebuild your body's feeling of overall metabolic safety. So this could be, even though you're eating clean, maybe there's some nutrient deficiencies, maybe there's some protein deficiencies, fiber deficiencies, maybe your blood sugar's all over the place. Maybe we're, like I said, have a disordered relationship with exercise. Like all of these things are part of that metabolic depletion picture. And to me, when I'm treating someone with thyroid issues, like that is step one, day one. We have to look at the sources unique for that individual, because we could throw all of the thyroid supplements at this that we want to and all the thyroid medications, and you're not going to feel shit unless you understand how to recover from metabolic depletion. That's got to be step one, okay? Even when I'm mentoring other practitioners in this field, they're like, oh, what do you think about some thyroid supplementation for her? I'm like, well, what's her nutrition look like? It's like, oh, she's severely under eating and she works out for 2 hours a day. And I'm like, you got to start there first. Like, I don't care how fancy dancy thyroid supplements. I'm like, are you eating enough? Are you stressed beyond? I was like, those are the things we have to look at first. Part two, if we kind of check off the list, like, okay, we are fueling ourselves well. We understand the concept of how to eat in a blood sugar balanced way. We know how to exercise with a great relationship. Step number two, then we're going to really think about the other biggest sabotager. Number two is going to be your digestion and your detoxification. There is a very strong relationship, kind of almost like a triad relationship between gut health, liver health, and thyroid function. It is strong. What most people don't realize is your thyroid does not work in isolation, which is why we can't treat it in isolation. This is just a small part of a massive network, and the two biggest allies of the thyroid are going to be the liver and going to be the gut. So let's just put some real talk science perspective into it first. Roughly 20%. Remember how I talked about that T4 hormone has to be converted into T3? And this, guys, is also true if you are medicated for your thyroid, because you are taking synthetic T4 in your prescription, right? Levothyroxine, Synthroid, like you are taking synthetic T4. We could give you synthetic T4, but if your body still can't convert it into T3, you're not going to feel any different, right? So it's not a production issue, it's more of a conversion issue at that point. So this is where the liver and the gut become exponentially important, is even if you are on thyroid medication already, now we have a whole nother level of importance to this, because roughly 20% of your T4 to T3 is converted in the gut. The other 60% is converted in the liver. So if we're looking at like, where does 80% of our overall thyroid function come from? It's the liver and the gut. 80%. But yet traditional medicine, all we're out here is testing TSH and T4, which tell us nothing about the liver or the gut. And we're either thinking like medication or no medication, which is either like more synthetic T4 or no synthetic T4. I'm like, why are we over here treating the thyroid in isolation when we know 80% of thyroid function is coming based off of the health of the liver and the gut? Like, what are we doing? Like, what a disservice to women everywhere that have been diagnosed with hypothyroidism or even Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, like all of those different thyroid-based dysfunction. What the heck is going on in the gut and the liver? That is my biggest question mark. If your gut is inflamed, if your microbiome is off, if we're dealing with things like SIBO, parasites, candida, this is going to disrupt overall conversion of T4 to T3. So the enzymes then that are responsible for T4 to T3 conversion, they don't function really well in an inflamed gut or if there's a ton of dysbiosis, as you can imagine. Same goes for the liver. If your detox pathways are sluggish because we have a lot of toxin overload, blood sugar balance, poor bile flow, lack of nutrients, right? Like we talked about in sabotage number 1, the conversion is going to slow down drastically. So that's going to show up as low energy, mood swings, cold hands, cold feet, dry skin, dry hair, weight gain, anxiety, irritability. Even the research shows that if you've ever heard of this term called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is really just a fancy way of saying like someone has an overwhelming amount of toxin burden in their body, individuals that have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease often show disrupted thyroid levels, even when their TSH levels are within range. Riddle me that, right? It's like, so we're out here measuring TSH, tells us nothing about the liver and the gut. Most people that have liver issues still have thyroid dysfunction, even if their TSH is normal, right? So this is why I can't quite wrap my head around why we have practitioners out there talking about the gut, talking about the thyroid, but they're not assessing liver health and gut health as a part of that workup. Because to me, that is, again, just an example of like incomplete medicine. It's like a start of the conversation, but to really finish that conversation, we have to be talking about, number 1, metabolic depletion, and number 2, we got to be talking about the gut and the liver. So there's a really great saying of what the liver doesn't detox, the thyroid will absorb. Right? So the thyroid is a sponge. It sucks up everything, right? So there's a working theory for individuals that do struggle with like autoimmune thyroid dysfunction, Hashimoto's, Graves' disease, like that is a toxin problem, right? Because the thyroid is absorbing toxins that the liver and the lymphatic system cannot clear out. So the thyroid is absorbing it, and then the immune system looks like it's attacking the thyroid, but the immune system is actually going after the toxins that are stored in the thyroid because the thyroid sponged them up because the liver couldn't get them out because the liver was overwhelmed, right? So I'm just saying, like I said, not that you have to be able to piece or parse all of that out because that's what a good practitioner should be helping you do. I'm just giving you guys this broad level look at why I feel like our traditional thyroid care is so incomplete because nobody is talking about these types of things except for myself, right? So this is where, like I said, I'm just so passionate about providing this information. Sabotager number 3, our final sabotager. This gets a little bit more into the side that I love of my low down methods is what I call science meets soul, right? So it is very science, it's very biology, but it's also mental. It's also emotional health, right? And so we have to recognize that our thyroid is also our voice. Right? The thyroid, like I said, is this butterfly gland. Is located right at the base of the neck. And so the thyroid being very tightly connected to, if you're familiar with energy centers and energy work, we tend to talk a lot about things like chakras, right? So we have our throat chakra. Our thyroid sits right around our throat chakra here. And so this, like I said, this conversation is part of what I love, my like science work meets soul work. Because your physiology, let's be real, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. If we want to believe in and come along with me for the woo-woo or not, your lived experiences, your beliefs, your patterns, your thoughts, your programming, It's all going to play an energetic role in how the thyroid is functioning. So since your thyroid sits right at your throat and right at where our voice box is, right where our throat chakra is, it has so many mind-body connections there. And with that, it's in association with things like communication, being able to share our truth, being able to fully live expressed into our authenticity. So laying that over with science, let's think about this for a second. Chronic stress, especially if there's like unprocessed emotional stressors, alters this hypothalamic pituitary thyroid axis, right, where the brain is communicating with the thyroid. And that is the hormone pathway that's going to tell the thyroid what to do. So if we have a lot of internal chronic repressed emotional stress in the body, that's absolutely going to show up in thyroid function. So I see this most commonly in women who have spent years feeling like they've just been silenced, right? They've kept their opinions to themselves. They've been in more of a submissive kind of relationship. Maybe women that felt like they've been praised for being like just easygoing, right? A people pleaser is a really great way. Being praised for being a people pleaser, stuffing down their own emotions and their own anger, especially. Maybe they learned that it wasn't safe to ask for help. It wasn't safe to speak their opinion. It wasn't safe to ask for what they needed, or they sacrificed like not hurting someone by withholding their truth. Right? It's like, it's very esoteric and it's very broad. This is where it takes us digging into a little bit of some of those layers in a safe container, but your thyroid is going to start to slow down. If you don't feel like you can fully express, fully communicate your truth, this isn't out of failure of the thyroid by any means. This is a biological response to chronic suppression. Okay. So the body's always listening to our subconscious nervous system, whether you think it or not, and your voice. And if your voice, expressing your voice, if it hasn't been safe, your body will adapt accordingly. So if you look at the field of psychoneuroimmunology, kind of hard to say, but you can kind of break that down, like psychoneuroimmunology, how the brain communicates with the body, specifically how the brain communicates with the nervous system, or how our emotions communicate to the brain and communicate to the immune system. Yes, this is a real field. Psychoneuroimmunology has found links between chronic emotional stress, suppressed affect, or like more of a depressive state, and the development of autoimmune thyroid disease like Hashimoto's. Okay, so there is actual research-based evidence showing the correlation between suppressed emotions and autoimmune thyroid issues. So when you can finally start using your voice and finally expressing, advocating for your needs, telling your truth, being able to set boundaries, something incredible happens, right? And your physiology really starts to shift in favor of that as well too. So this is why with the lowdown methods, I don't separate your emotional health from your physical health. Like there are two sides to the same hormone coin. So we can't talk about thyroid health without talking about the gut and the liver. We also can't talk about the gut and the liver without talking about like suppressed emotions and suppressed anger too. So it becomes really cool when we start to be able to zoom out and put all of this together into what I call a whole different system of healthcare. I'm not competing against traditional healthcare at all. Like they offer a whole different set of toolboxes. I'm creating a whole new style of healthcare because it doesn't exist out there. And I'm passionate about bringing an option for people that does exist. And this is where science meets soul. We marry together the physiology and the psychology of it. And we start to produce like some real life change here, right? Not just surface level, like, oh, do you need thyroid hormone or do you not need thyroid hormone? I'm like, let's not kick it while it's down and let's figure out why it's down in the first place, right? So bringing this full circle, just know that your thyroid is not lazy. Your thyroid is not broken. It is adaptive. It is responsive. It is very intelligent, in fact. And if you want to truly support your thyroid, you have to be able to look at the metabolic signals that it's being sent, right? If it's constantly getting these signals through our nutrition and our lifestyle that we're depleted, of course it's going to hoard and of course it's going to hold on. We also have to be able to look at the digestive system and the detoxification pathways, because whatever our body can't excrete, the thyroid is going to absorb, right? And then the immune system is going to have to get involved. And lastly, we have to be able to talk about the emotional and the energetic and the neurological stories and beliefs that we have lived through and the voice that we might be suppressing. That to me is complete thyroid care, okay? And that's what I'm really passionate about bringing at the Lowdown, and being able to, like I said, really marry these together. It's, like I said, the most complete medicine that I could imagine, and what, like I said, I know that I wish I had years ago when I was going through health struggles, but it's, like I said, that's what we all deserve to be able to have. If it is something that you are passionate about and want to dip your toes into the Lowdown methods, I encourage you to go to link in my profile. You can schedule us a functional wellness consult there where we can run some labs, which, yes, does include what I would consider a complete thyroid panel, not just TSH, not just T4, but looking at a complete thyroid panel along with 30 plus other metabolic markers to really start to lay out and determine what your unique factors are for your health journey. So come back next week. We'll have even more fun woo-woo stuff for you guys. But in the meantime, think about the 3 main sabotagers of your thyroid health being metabolic depletion, your liver and your gut, as well as any sort of voice